Keanu Reeves remembered his ex, Jennifer Syme. Their moments still touch hearts. The room was quiet, but inside Keanu's heart, a storm was alive. He sat near the window, the city lights fading into the distance, and for a moment he was not the man the world admired, not the star who carried silence like armor, but only a man who remembered a woman whose presence had changed his world. Her name was Jennifer Syme, and even though time had passed, the memory of her was never far. Every night when the streets slowed down, he found himself walking through the past, as if her voice still lingered in the air. People often thought Keanu was strong because he never showed his pain openly, but inside he carried a story that few could imagine. Jennifer had not only been his love, she had been his safe place, the one who understood the weight of his silence. Their connection was not built on loud promises, but on quiet understanding. When she smiled at him, he felt lighter. When she placed her hand on his, he felt the chaos of the world fade away. Now, in the quiet of his nights, those small moments came back sharper than ever, almost too real to bear. Keanu had always believed that life could be cruel, but with Jennifer, he had seen the beauty hidden in its chaos. They shared music, laughter, and dreams of a simple life far from the noise of cameras. Yet fate had written their story with both light and shadows. The day she left this world was the day Keanu's heart cracked open, and no fame, no money, no success could heal it. People around him never knew the depth of his grief, but his silence carried the truth. That night, as he looked at the window glass, he saw not only his reflection but also the faint shape of memories. He remembered how Jennifer once leaned on his shoulder and whispered that life was short, but love made it worth living. Those words became his compass, and even after losing her, he carried them in his soul. But carrying love also meant carrying pain. Every success in his life felt incomplete. Every joy carried a shadow of longing. Still, Keanu did not let grief destroy him. He let it mold him into a man of humility. He did not fight the pain with anger. He did not bury it under pride. Instead, he embraced kindness. He understood that every stranger could be hiding a story of loss just like his, and so he treated people with the respect he wished the world had given him in his darkest days. His humility came from that heartbreak, and his resilience came from standing up every day despite the weight he carried. As he sat in the silence, his phone lit up with a message from a friend inviting him to an event. Keanu hesitated. He never liked the noise of Hollywood gatherings, yet something inside whispered that he should go. Life was strange. It sometimes pulled him into places where new paths opened. Still, part of him resisted. The thought of being in bright rooms, smiling for cameras while carrying memories that still bled inside him, felt almost unbearable. He closed his eyes and let the silence guide him. He remembered the last time Jennifer had told him to not hide away from the world. She believed that even when life broke you, stepping forward mattered. He heard her voice in his heart, soft but steady. And for the first time in many days, he stood up and whispered to himself that maybe tomorrow he would face the world again. Yet deep down he knew that when he walked out into the noise, no one would see the truth. No one would see how every light reminded him of what he had lost. And no one would know that the kindness he showed was born from an endless well of grief. That was his secret, and only he and the memory of Jennifer carried it. But tomorrow, something unexpected waited for him, something that would change the way he remembered her. It was not an easy road, and it was not free of conflict, yet it would test his strength in ways he never imagined. The next morning came quietly, sunlight slipping through the curtains and drawing soft lines across the floor. Keanu sat on the edge of his bed, the memories of Jennifer still fresh in his mind. He felt tired, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of his thoughts. Life often felt like a long journey where every step carried both love and loss. He rubbed his eyes and whispered her name under his breath, almost as if calling out to her spirit. His phone buzzed again, reminding him of the event he had promised to attend. It was a charity gathering, something he normally supported with quiet donations but rarely attended in person. This time, something felt different. The voice of Jennifer from the night before still lingered in his mind, telling him not to hide. With a deep breath, he decided he would go. He knew it would not be easy, but he also knew that facing the world mattered. As he walked into the venue later that evening, he was met with bright lights, cameras flashing, and voices echoing around the hall. To others, it was just another glamorous Hollywood night, but to Keanu it felt heavy, almost unreal. He moved slowly, his calm face hiding the storm inside. People greeted him warmly, some with admiration, some with curiosity, but behind their smiles he could feel how little they truly knew. Then, in the middle of that noise, a moment caught him off guard. A young woman stepped forward, nervous but determined, holding a small book in her hands. She told him softly that she had written about grief and resilience, and that his life story had inspired her. Her eyes carried the same kind of pain he had seen in his own reflection for years. She explained how she lost her brother and how she almost gave up, until she read about how Keanu carried his silence with dignity. For a second, Keanu felt his heart freeze. It was rare for him to hear someone speak so openly about pain in such a crowded place. The girl's voice trembled, but her honesty reached him in a way no applause ever could. He took the book from her hands gently, thanked her, and looked into her eyes. In that moment, he remembered Jennifer again. She, too, had always encouraged honesty, had always told him that sharing pain could heal not just yourself, but others. Keanu realized that this meeting was no accident. It felt almost like fate, a quiet reminder that his own suffering could still bring comfort to others. The young woman smiled through her tears, and he offered her words of strength, telling her that the world breaks everyone, but healing comes from the choice to keep walking. Those words were not rehearsed. They came from the same place in his heart where he still carried Jennifer. As the evening continued, Keanu stayed longer than he expected. He found himself talking with people, listening to their stories, and sharing gentle kindness. For the first time in a long while, he did not feel completely alone. It was not joy, but it was something close to peace. Still, when the night ended and he walked back to his car, the silence returned. Grief always returned. Sitting behind the wheel, he opened the small book the girl had given him. Inside the first page was a handwritten note. To Keanu, thank you for teaching me that silence can still carry love. He closed the book with a heavy breath, and in that quiet moment, he felt Jennifer close again, almost as if she was guiding him through these encounters. But life has its ways of testing hearts. Keanu did not know that in the days ahead, he would be forced to face memories he had locked away for years. There was someone from his past he had not expected to see again, someone connected deeply to Jennifer. That meeting would stir not only grief, but also truths that could break or heal him. 2 days later, Keanu found himself sitting in a quiet cafe away from the noise of the city. He often came here when he needed to breathe, when he wanted to escape from cameras and questions. The warm smell of coffee and the soft sound of conversations gave him a strange sense of comfort. Yet even in these quiet corners his thoughts always circled back to Jennifer. He opened the small book again, the one the young woman had given him. Every line about grief and healing felt like a mirror. But as he turned the pages, a shadow fell across the table. A voice spoke his name softly, almost uncertainly. "Keanu?" He looked up and his heart tightened. Standing there was someone he never thought he would see again. An old friend of Jennifer, a woman named Claire. She had been close to both of them years ago, but after the tragedy, their paths had drifted apart. The memories were too heavy, the silence between them too deep. Yet here she was, her eyes carrying the same weight of the past. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was filled with both comfort and pain. Claire finally sat down, her hands trembling slightly as she held her cup. She told him that she had seen him at the charity event, and that she almost walked away but couldn't. She said Jennifer had been like a sister to her, and she still thought about her every day. Keanu felt his chest tighten. Hearing Jennifer's name spoken aloud by someone else brought back emotions he had buried. He listened quietly as Claire continued. She spoke of memories he had forgotten, of moments they all shared together, simple nights filled with laughter, music, and dreams. As she spoke, he could almost hear Jennifer's laughter again, soft and bright, echoing in his heart. But then Claire's tone shifted. She admitted that she had carried guilt for years. She believed there were things she could have done differently, ways she could have protected Jennifer better. Her eyes filled with tears as she whispered that she had even blamed Keanu at one point, not out of truth, but out of the pain of loss. Her honesty was sharp, cutting the air between them. Keanu sat silently, letting her words sink in. He did not show anger, only sorrow. He understood grief too well, and he knew it often made people search for someone to blame. He told Claire softly that he too had blamed himself for everything. He explained how many nights he had asked himself questions that had no answers. They both sat there in silence. Two hearts wounded by the same loss, both struggling to forgive themselves. As the evening sun lowered, Claire pulled out a small envelope. Inside it was a photograph. It was of Jennifer, smiling brightly, standing between them both from years ago. Keanu stared at it, his hands shaking. He had never seen this picture before, and it felt like a hidden piece of their story had suddenly returned. Claire whispered that she had kept it all these years, but never had the courage to give it to him. Now, seeing him again, she felt it was the right time. Keanu held the photo gently, his eyes clouded with tears he did not let fall. He thanked her quietly, his voice almost breaking. Yet, as they parted ways that night, Claire left him with words that stayed in his mind. There are things about Jennifer's last days. You don't know, Keanu. Things I never told you. Those words followed him into the night like an echo. His heart was heavy, and he realized that the past was not finished with him. There were still truths waiting in the shadows. Truths that could either bring him peace or reopen wounds that had never healed. The night after meeting Claire, Keanu could not sleep. Her final words repeated in his head over and over like a quiet storm refusing to fade. There are things about Jennifer's last days you don't know. He sat in the darkness of his living room, staring at the photograph Claire had given him. Jennifer's smile in the picture was so bright, so alive it was hard to believe that she was gone. He wondered what Claire had meant. Was there something hidden? Something Jennifer had kept from him? Keanu had lived for years with the belief that he knew everything about her final days, that the tragedy was simply fate, cruel and unstoppable. Now, the possibility of unknown truths shook him deeply. The following afternoon, Claire called him. Her voice was hesitant, filled with the weight of someone who had carried silence for too long. She asked if they could meet again, somewhere quiet where she could finally speak the truth. Keanu agreed, though his heart was uneasy. They met at a small park where trees swayed gently in the wind and children laughed in the distance. The contrast between life around them and the grief in their hearts was sharp. Claire looked nervous, her eyes heavy with memories. She began slowly, as if each word carried a burden. She told Keanu that in the last weeks of Jennifer's life, she had been struggling more than anyone knew. She had been carrying pain that she never shared fully, even with him. Claire explained that Jennifer had spoken to her privately about feeling trapped, about the weight of fame, about how difficult it was to live in a world that always looked at Keanu but never truly saw her. She loved him deeply, but she sometimes felt invisible. Claire admitted that she had never shared this with Keanu before because she feared it would only break him further. Keanu listened in silence, his heart twisting with every word. Guilt surged through him like a wave. He had always tried to make Jennifer feel loved and safe, but hearing this made him question if he had failed her. Claire reached out, placing her hand gently on his, and told him that Jennifer never blamed him. She said Jennifer had told her many times that Keanu was her anchor, her peace. But at the same time, she had been fighting her own battles that no one could truly see. Tears burned Keanu's eyes, but he held them back. He whispered softly that he wished Jennifer had told him everything, that he would have done anything to carry her pain with her. Claire nodded and said sometimes the people we love the most hide their deepest struggles because they do not want to become a burden. Then Claire revealed something even more unexpected. She told him that a few days before Jennifer's passing, she had written a letter. Claire had been the one who received it, but she had never given it to him. Fear and grief had kept her silent all these years. Now, after seeing him again, she believed it was finally time to let him read it. She pulled a folded envelope from her bag, old and worn with age. She handed it to Keanu, her hands shaking. For a long moment he stared at it, unable to move. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Opening it felt both terrifying and necessary. Claire told him gently, "This letter is not about blame, Keanu. It's about love. But it might change how you remember her." He slipped the envelope into his coat pocket, deciding to read it later when he was alone. His heart was not ready yet, but he knew the time would come. As they parted that evening, Keanu walked slowly through the streets, the envelope pressing against his chest like a secret heartbeat. The world around him moved as usual, cars honking, people talking, lights glowing, but inside him a storm was waiting to break. And when the night finally came, when he was alone with silence and shadows, he would open the letter and face the truth Jennifer had left behind. The night was still. Keanu sat alone in his home, the only sound the faint ticking of a clock on the wall. The envelope lay on the table in front of him, untouched, but its presence filled the room with a heavy silence. He had been staring at it for hours, afraid of what it might hold. His hands hovered over it more than once, but he always pulled back, as if opening it would tear open wounds he had tried to live with for years. Finally, with a deep breath, he reached for it. His fingers trembled as he broke the seal and unfolded the letter. The paper was worn, the ink slightly faded, but Jennifer's handwriting was clear. As his eyes moved over the first words, his heart began to pound. She had written, "My dear Keanu, if you are reading this, it means I could not tell you these things in person. Please know that I loved you with everything I had. You were my peace when the world felt too heavy. You gave me laughter when my heart was breaking. You were my safe place. But there were things I carried that I could not share, not because I did not trust you, but because I was afraid you would carry my pain as your own." Tears blurred his vision, but he forced himself to keep reading. Her words were both gentle and heartbreaking. She explained how the weight of loss, the struggles of the past, and the pressure of living in the shadows of fame had broken her in ways no one could see. She wrote that sometimes she felt she was disappearing, not in his heart, but in the world around him. She admitted she had moments of weakness, times when she felt she did not belong anywhere. Yet she also wrote of love. "You must not blame yourself, Keanu. You were the light in my life. You gave me more love than I ever thought I deserved. Please do not carry guilt for what happened. My battles were my own. Remember me not with sorrow but with kindness. Every time you show kindness to others, you keep me alive. Every time you smile, I am with you. Do not close your heart. Live, because that is how you honor me." When he finished the letter, Keanu placed it against his chest, holding it tightly as if holding her once more. The tears he had been holding back for years finally fell freely. The room blurred around him, and all he could feel was the echo of her love. But along with the love came a sharp wave of regret. He whispered her name over and over, wishing he had seen more, wishing he had done more. Yet in her words he also found something he had not felt in a long time: permission to forgive himself. The pain did not vanish, but it softened like a wound beginning to heal after years of bleeding. He sat there for hours, reading the letter again and again, until the words were engraved in his memory. Every sentence felt like a bridge between the past and the present, reminding him that love does not end even when life does. The next day, Keanu met Claire again. He told her about the letter, about how it both broke him and lifted him. Claire wept too, and for the first time they both felt that Jennifer's voice had finally been heard. Together, they placed flowers at a quiet spot Jennifer had loved. Keanu whispered her words aloud, almost like a promise that he would carry on not with sorrow but with kindness. Yet deep inside, he knew this was not the end. The letter had given him peace, but it also left him with questions. What did she mean when she wrote about feeling invisible? What battles had she faced alone that no one else had seen? The answers might still be out there, waiting in places he had never dared to look. As he stood with the flowers, the wind brushed against his face, and for a moment he felt as if Jennifer was near, smiling softly, urging him forward. But moving forward would not be easy, because the world was about to test him again. An unexpected voice from the past would soon reach out, someone who carried a piece of Jennifer's story that Keanu had never known. The days after reading the letter felt different for Keanu. There was pain, yes, but also a strange sense of calm. Jennifer's words lived inside him now, guiding him through each moment. He carried the letter in his pocket wherever he went, as if her presence was stitched into the paper. But even as he tried to find peace, he felt the shadow of unanswered questions. He knew there was more to her story than what he had been told. One evening, as he walked down a quiet street after visiting the place where Jennifer used to love sitting under the stars, his phone rang. The voice on the other side froze him. It was Michael, Jennifer's cousin, someone he had not spoken to in years. Their connection had faded after her passing, lost in the chaos of grief and silence. Keanu's heart beat faster as Michael asked to meet. His tone was calm, but there was something in it that hinted at unspoken truths. The next day they met at a small diner away from the city. Michael looked older, his eyes tired but his voice steady. He told Keanu he had been following his quiet acts of kindness over the years, and he respected the way Keanu had carried grief with dignity. But then he leaned closer, his voice lower, and said, there were things about Jennifer's final days that he had never shared. Keanu felt the air grow heavy. Michael explained that in her last weeks Jennifer had reached out to him. She had spoken about feeling lost, about fighting battles inside her mind that no one else could see. She had written not only one letter, but several, each sent to different people close to her. Michael admitted he had one of them, hidden away for years. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and placed it on the table. Keanu stared at it, his heart racing. It was smaller than the one Claire had given him, but the handwriting was the same. Jennifer's. Michael said he had kept it because it felt too heavy to share, but now, seeing how Keanu still remembered her with such love, he believed it was time. Keanu unfolded the paper slowly, his hands shaking. This letter was shorter, but the words cut deep. I feel like I am fading, even though love surrounds me. I feel the world moving too fast, and I cannot keep up. I do not want to burden the people I love, so I hide it behind smiles. Please forgive me if I seem distant. I just hope one day my silence will be understood, not as lack of love, but as a battle I could not explain. The diner grew quiet around him as he read those words. Keanu felt his chest tighten, his throat closing. He realized that Jennifer's silence had never been emptiness. It had been a shield. She had been protecting those she loved from her own storms. Michael spoke again, his voice heavy. He said he had always wanted to tell Keanu, but he feared it would only add to his guilt. Yet now he saw that knowing the truth could also bring understanding. Jennifer's love for Keanu was never in doubt, but her pain was deeper than anyone could see. Keanu nodded slowly, his eyes wet with tears. He did not hide this time. He thanked Michael for sharing the letter, even though it hurt, because in those words he saw not just sorrow but also a reminder of her courage. She had loved enough to hide her pain, even when it broke her. As they parted that night, Keanu walked into the cool air, both letters tucked close to his heart. The truth was heavy, but it was also a gift. It taught him that sometimes the people we love fight battles we cannot save them from, but we can still honor them by living with kindness. Yet as he looked up at the night sky, he knew his journey with Jennifer's memory was not over. One more person, someone he least expected, would soon step into his path, carrying the final piece of her story. That meeting would test his heart more than ever before. The next few days were heavy for Keanu. He carried the two letters with him everywhere, reading them again and again. Each word from Jennifer felt like both a wound and a gift. He began to understand that love was not only about holding someone's hand while they smiled, but also about carrying their silence when they could not speak. Still, he felt that something was missing, as if one last truth was waiting in the shadows. That truth arrived unexpectedly. One afternoon, as he stepped out of a bookstore, an older woman called his name. He turned and froze. It was Jennifer's mother. He had not seen her in years, not since the funeral, where grief had swallowed words between them. Her face carried the marks of time and sorrow, but her eyes still held warmth. She walked closer, her voice soft as she asked if they could sit for a while. They found a quiet bench nearby. For a long time they said nothing, just letting the silence speak. Finally, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. She said she had kept it for years, unsure if she should ever give it to him. Inside were small pieces of Jennifer's life, photos, a necklace, and a folded paper. Keanu opened the paper with trembling hands. It was another letter, but this one was different. It was not filled with sorrow, but with hope. Jennifer had written it only days before she left, and it carried words that cut through the fog of grief. Keanu, if I could choose again, I would still choose you. Even in my darkest days, your love was the brightest part of my life. Please remember me not for how I left, but for the moments we shared. Every smile, every laugh, every quiet night together, that is the truth of us. I know you will keep living, and I want you to. When you show kindness to others, you show me too. I will always be with you in ways the world cannot see. Reading those words, Keanu felt something break and heal at the same time. For years he had carried guilt, believing he had failed her, believing love had not been enough. But now, through her final message, he understood. Her leaving was not a measure of his love, but of her own battles. Her love for him had never faded, and her hope had always been that he would live on. He looked at her mother, his voice shaking but steady. He thanked her for giving him this piece of Jennifer's heart. Together they sat quietly, tears in both their eyes, but also a strange peace. For the first time in years, Keanu felt as if the weight inside him had lightened, even if only a little. That night he went back to the quiet place he always visited, a spot under the stars where Jennifer once told him she felt free. He placed the letters and the small necklace beside him, looking up at the sky. The stars seemed brighter, as if carrying her presence. He whispered softly, promising her that he would keep living, not with sorrow, but with the love she had given him. From that day forward, Keanu carried her memory not as a wound, but as a light. He chose to honor her by living with humility, by showing kindness, by treating every person with the respect she had always believed in. People often wondered why he moved through the world so quietly, so gently, but only he knew that behind every act of kindness was a love that still lived. The story of Keanu and Jennifer did not end with loss. It lived on in every life he touched, in every quiet smile, in every moment of resilience. Love had broken him, but it had also built him into the man the world admired, not because of fame, but because of the compassion born from pain. And so, even years later, when people spoke of Keanu's kindness, they did not know that behind it was the memory of a woman who still touched his heart, a love that time could not erase, and a promise that even in silence, love never truly dies.